Welcome to the Story Lab. I hope you enjoy this story. Let's begin. The hustle and bustle of JFK Airport faded into a dull hum as I settled into the plush leather seat of the VIP lounge. A steaming cup of coffee sat untouched before me, its aroma a stark contrast to the bitter taste in my mouth. I glanced at my watch, still 2 hours until my flight to California. 2 hours until I took the final step in selling off Morgan Manufacturing, the family business that had been both my greatest achievement and my heaviest burden. Mr. Morgan? A young attendant approached, tablet in hand. Is there anything else I can get for you? I waved her off with a forced smile. No, thank you. I'm fine. Fine. What a loaded word. On paper, Samuel Morgan was more than fine. Highly successful businessman, multimillionaire, loving family man. But sitting here, surrounded by the trappings of success, I felt anything but fine. My phone buzzed. Another email from the board, no doubt chomping at the bit for updates on the sale. I ignored it, instead pulling up a photo of Camila and the girls. Harper and Lily's smiling faces stared back at me, a reminder of everything I'd sacrificed to get here. Quite the family you've got there, a voice beside me commented. I looked up to see an older gentleman taking a seat nearby. Thanks, I replied, pocketing the phone. They're my world. The man nodded sagely. Work often takes us away from what matters most, doesn't it? I'm Arthur, by the way. Sam, I offered, shaking his hand. And you're not wrong about work. Sometimes I wonder if it's all worth it. Arthur chuckled. A loaded question if I ever heard one. Care to unpack that a bit? I hesitated, but something about the man's kind eyes made me want to open up. I'm on my way to California to finalize the sale of my company. It's been in my family for generations, but the pressure, it's suffocating. Meeting quotas, appeasing shareholders, always chasing that next big deal. Sounds like quite the weight on your shoulders, Arthur observed. I sighed, running a hand through my hair. You have no idea. Don't get me wrong. I'm grateful for our success. But lately, I can't shake this feeling that I've lost sight of what really matters. And what might that be? Arthur prodded gently. Time, I replied without hesitation. Time with my wife, watching my girls grow up. I've missed so many moments, Arthur. Recitals, games, family dinners, all because I was too busy chasing the next big thing. Arthur nodded thoughtfully. It's a common struggle in our line of work. The eternal balancing act between ambition and family. How do you manage it? I asked, genuinely curious. He smiled wryly. Not always well, I'm afraid. But I've learned that it's never too late to shift your priorities. The question is, what do you truly want, Sam? I stared into my coffee, mulling over his words. Honestly, I want to feel fulfilled. Not just successful, but happy, content. And does selling your company bring you closer to that goal? I opened my mouth to respond, then closed it again. The truth was, I wasn't sure. The sale would certainly alleviate the immediate pressure, but would it fill the void I'd been feeling? Before I could formulate an answer, a voice crackled over the intercom. Now boarding, first-class passengers for Flight 372 to Los Angeles. Arthur stood, gathering his belongings. Well, Sam, it seems our time is up. But perhaps this conversation has given you something to ponder during your flight. I nodded, shaking his hand once more. It certainly has. Thank you, Arthur. As I watched him walk away, I couldn't shake the feeling that this chance encounter had stirred something within me. With a deep breath, I gathered my own things and headed for the gate, Arthur's question echoing in my mind. What did I truly want? Little did I know. The universe was about to throw me a curveball that would force me to confront that very question head-on. I strode towards the gate, briefcase in hand, and a facade of confidence masking my inner turmoil. The first-class line was mercifully short, and I approached the counter with practiced ease. Good afternoon, Mr. Morgan. The gate agent greeted me with a plasticky smile. May I see your boarding pass? I handed it over, already envisioning myself settling into the spacious first-class seat, maybe even managing to get some work done before landing. The agent's brow furrowed as she tapped away at her computer. I'm terribly sorry, Mr. Morgan, but it appears there's been an issue with your seat assignment. Excuse me? I leaned in, certain I'd misheard. She cleared her throat nervously. It seems your seat has been double booked. I'm so sorry for the inconvenience. I felt my jaw tighten. There must be some mistake. I always fly first class. Check again. I assure you, sir, I've triple-checked, she replied, her smile growing strained. Unfortunately, all other first-class seats are occupied. We do have a seat available in coach, if you'd still like to make this flight. The words hit me like a slap in the face. Coach? Me? I hadn't flown anything but first class in years. This is unacceptable, I snapped, aware of the growing line behind me. I paid for a first-class ticket. I expect a first-class seat. I understand your frustration, Mr. Morgan, the agent said, her voice low. We can offer you a full refund and book you on the next available flight with a guaranteed first-class seat. I glanced at my watch, mental calculations whirring. Waiting for the next flight would throw off my entire schedule, potentially jeopardizing the deal. Fine, I growled, snatching the coach boarding pass she offered. But I want it noted that this is completely unacceptable. Of course, sir. Again, we deeply apologize for the inconvenience. I stormed down the jetway, my mood darkening with each step. As I reached my assigned row, my heart sank. The seats were cramped, barely enough legroom for a child, let alone a grown man. Excuse me, I muttered, squeezing past a mother with a crying infant to reach my middle seat. I struggled to fit my briefcase in the overhead compartment. The baby's wails intensified. I gritted my teeth, fighting the urge to snap at the mother. First time flying with a little one? The man in the aisle seat asked her sympathetically. She nodded, looking frazzled. I'm so sorry about the noise. I don't know what's wrong with her. No worries, the man replied with a kind smile. My wife and I have 3 of our own. Here, let me show you a trick that always worked for us. I watched in disbelief as the stranger gently took the baby, demonstrating a rocking technique that almost immediately quieted her cries. Oh my goodness, thank you, the mother exclaimed, relief evident in her voice. Happy to help, the man replied, handing the now calm infant back to her mother. I squeezed into my seat, feeling a twinge of shame at my own irritation. The kind stranger's actions stood in stark contrast to my behavior at the gate. As the flight attendants began their safety demonstration, I found my mind wandering. This whole situation, the double booking, being crammed into coach, it was like the universe was conspiring to throw me off balance. I thought back to my conversation with Arthur in the lounge. What did I truly want? Certainly not this, the stress, the constant pressure, the feeling that everything was spiraling out of my control. The plane began to taxi, and a sudden wave of claustrophobia washed over me. I couldn't do this. I couldn't spend the next 6 hours wedged into this seat, stewing in my own frustration. Excuse me, I said abruptly, startling the mother beside me. I need to get off. Sir, we're about to take off, a flight attendant cautioned. You'll need to remain seated. No, you don't understand, I insisted, my voice rising. I can't be on this flight. I need to leave. Now. The flight attendant exchanged a worried glance with her colleague. Sir, please calm down. Once we're airborne, I said now. I snapped, louder than I intended. The baby started crying again, and I felt the eyes of every passenger boring into me. What followed was a blur of activity, the plane returning to the gate, me being escorted off by security, hushed whispers and disapproving glares from my fellow passengers. As I stood in the terminal, watching the plane take off without me, a strange sense of relief washed over me. I pulled out my phone and dialed my assistant. Cancel all my meetings in California, I instructed. I'm going home. But sir, the deal can wait? I finished firmly. Something's come up. I'll explain later. As I hung up, I felt lighter than I had in years. For the first time in a long time, I was choosing my own path, consequences be damned. The drive home from the airport was a blur of familiar streets and unfamiliar emotions. My impromptu decision to bail on the California trip left me feeling both exhilarated and uneasy. As I pulled into our upscale suburban neighborhood, the manicured lawns and pristine houses seemed to mock my inner turmoil. I parked in the driveway, noticing Camila's car was there. Good. I suddenly felt an overwhelming need to see her, to share this strange day and the revelations it had brought. Camila? I called out as I entered our spacious foyer. Girls? I'm home early. Silence greeted me. Strange. I checked my watch 3:30 p.m. Harper and Lily would still be at college, but Camila should be here. Cam. I tried again, climbing the stairs. Maybe she was taking a nap. As I approached our bedroom, I heard muffled sounds. My pace quickened, worry creeping in. Was Camila sick? I pushed open the door, my mind not fully processing what my eyes were seeing. Camila was indeed in bed, but she wasn't alone. Tangled in our sheets was a man I recognized all too well, Bryce Turner, the local real estate hotshot. Time seemed to stand still as three pairs of eyes locked in a tableau of shock and horror. Camila recovered first. Sam, she gasped, clutching the sheet to her chest. What are you doing at home? The shock of discovery gave way to a cold, calculating anger. I pulled out my phone, my fingers trembling slightly as I opened the camera app. Camila and Bryce were still frozen in place, like deer caught in headlights. You're recording this? Are you serious right now? Camila's voice quivered. I raised the phone, a bitter smile twisting my lips. Preserving the moment. Smile for the camera, lovebirds. Sam, don't. Bryce started to move, but I was quicker. The shutter sound echoed in the tense silence as I captured several incriminating photos. Delete those right now, Camila demanded, her voice shrill with panic. I laughed humorlessly. I don't think you're in any position to make demands, Cam. Bryce lunged forward, but I easily sidestepped him. I warned. Try anything, and these go straight to Amanda. And trust me, I know people who can make sure everyone in town sees them too. You wouldn't, Camila gasped, horror etched on her face. I met her gaze, letting her see the steel in my eyes. Try me. Bryce, to his credit, looked appropriately terrified. Sam, man, I can explain. Explain? I cut him off, a laugh devoid of humor escaping my lips. Please, Bryce, enlighten me. I'm dying to hear how you ended up fucking my wife in my own house. Sam, please, Camila pleaded, tears welling in her eyes. It's not what you think. Really? I spat, fury finally breaking through the shock. Because what I think is that I just caught my wife of 15 years cheating on me with a two-bit realtor in the bed we've shared since our wedding night. Bryce flinched at the insult. Now hold on a minute. Shut up, I roared, taking a menacing step forward. You don't get to speak, either of you. I turned my gaze to Camila, searching for any trace of the woman I'd loved for nearly 2 decades. All I saw was a stranger, her face a mask of guilt and fear. How long? I asked, my voice dangerously quiet. Camila's lower lip trembled. Sam, How long? I repeated, enunciating each word. She looked down, unable to meet my eyes. 6 months, she whispered. The admission hit me like a physical blow. 6 months. Half a year of lies, of betrayal, while I worked myself to the bone providing for our family. Get out, I said, my tone flat. Bryce started to move, but I held up a hand. Not you, I growled. You're going to sit there and listen while I talk to my wife. I turned back to Camila, who was openly weeping now. Why? I asked, hating how broken my voice sounded. Was I not enough? Did I not give you everything you ever wanted? It's not that simple, she sobbed. You were never here, Sam. Always working, always distracted. I felt so alone. So you decided to fuck the neighbor? I interrupted, unable to keep the venom from my words. Real mature, Cam. Really solved the problem, didn't it? I'm sorry, she whispered. I never meant for this to happen. I love you, Sam. We can work through this. Her words ignited a fresh wave of anger within me. Love me? You have a funny way of showing it. And there's nothing to work through. We're done. The finality in my voice seemed to shake her. Sam, no, please. Think of the girls. Don't you dare bring them into this, I snarled. You should have thought of them before you invited this asshole into our home. I turned to Bryce, who looked like he wanted to disappear into the mattress. And you. I always knew you were a snake. But this is low, even for you. Sam, I'm sorry, he started, but I cut him off with a harsh laugh. Sorry you got caught, you mean? Tell me, does Amanda know where you are right now? Should I give her a call? Let her know her husband's been busy? The color drained from Bryce's face. Please, don't. In a flash of inspiration born of vindictive rage, I snatched up Bryce's neatly folded clothes from the chair. What are you doing? He asked, confusion evident in his voice. Leaving you as exposed as you've left me, I snarled, backing towards the door. Realization dawned on Bryce's face. You can't be serious. Give me my clothes. Sam, this is childish, Camila chimed in, clutching the sheet to her chest. I paused at the doorway, my hand on the knob. Childish? You want to see childish? Without warning, I lunged forward, my fist connecting solidly with Bryce's jaw. He stumbled back, shock and pain mingling on his face. You son of a bitch, he yelled, holding his face. I stood my ground, adrenaline coursing through me. That's for fucking my wife. Want another? Bryce's eyes darted between me and the door, clearly weighing his options. Camila burst into tears, the reality of the situation finally sinking in. Sam, please, she sobbed. Let's just talk about this. I turned to her, my voice ice cold. There's nothing to talk about. We're done. With that, I stormed out of the room, Bryce's clothes still clutched in my hand. The sound of their panicked voices faded as I descended the stairs, my mind racing with plans for revenge. I paced the living room, Bryce's clothes wadded up in my hands. Upstairs, I could hear the frantic sounds of Camila and Bryce scrambling to dress. A grim satisfaction settled over me as I imagined their panic. Footsteps on the stairs. I turned to see Camila, hastily dressed and tear-stained. Bryce trailing behind her in his underwear. Sam, Camila started, her voice pleading, we need to talk about this. I held up a hand, silencing her. No, what we need is for you both to get the hell out of my house. Bryce stepped forward, hands raised placatingly. Come on, man. This isn't— Shut up, I snapped, rounding on him. You don't get to speak. In fact, you don't get to do anything except leave. Now. Sam, please, Camila begged, reaching for me. I jerked away from her touch. It was a mistake, a moment of weakness. I love you. I laughed bitterly. Love me? Is that what you call fucking another man in our bed? It's not that simple, she protested weakly. Actually, it is, I countered. You made your choice. Now you can both live with it. Get out. Bryce cleared his throat awkwardly. Can I have my clothes back? I looked at the bundle in my hands, then back at Bryce's pathetic, half-naked form. Without a word, I strode to the front door and flung it open. Sam, what are you? Bryce started. But his words were cut short as I hurled his clothes out onto the front lawn. There's your clothes, I growled. Now get the fuck out before I throw you out too. Bryce hesitated, looking between me and the scattered garments on the grass. You can't be serious. Try me, I challenged, taking a menacing step forward. That was all it took. Bryce bolted, dignity forgotten, as he scurried across the lawn in his underwear, frantically gathering his clothes. I turned back to Camila, who stood frozen in shock. Your turn. Sam, please, she whispered, fresh tears spilling down her cheeks. Don't do this. Think of the girls. We can work through this. For a moment, I faltered. The thought of Harper and Lily, of tearing apart their world, made my chest ache. But then the image of Camila and Bryce in our bed flashed through my mind, stealing my resolve. You should have thought of them before you invited that scumbag into our home, I said coldly. Now go. I'll explain to the girls myself. You can't just kick me out. Camila protested, a hint of anger finally breaking through her tears. This is my home too. Not anymore, I replied, my voice devoid of emotion. I want you gone by the time I get back. Take what you need for tonight. We'll figure out the rest later. And where am I supposed to go? She demanded. I shrugged, already turning away. Not my problem. Maybe your boyfriend has a spare room. As I walked out the door, leaving Camila standing shell-shocked in our once shared home, I pulled out my phone. There were calls to make, plans to set in motion. My life had been shattered, but from the wreckage, I'd build something new, something stronger. The law office of Bennett and Associates exuded an air of quiet power. I sat across from Olivia Bennett, her reputation for ruthlessness evident in the sharp set of her shoulders and the steel in her eyes. "So, Mr. Morgan," Olivia began, folding her hands on the polished desk, "walk me through what happened." I took a deep breath, the events of the past 24 hours still raw. "I caught my wife in bed with another man. Our neighbor, actually." Olivia's eyebrow arched slightly, but her voice remained professional. "I see. And you're certain you want to proceed with divorce?" "Absolutely," I replied without hesitation. "There's no coming back from this." She nodded, reaching for a legal pad. "All right then, let's discuss your options. Given the circumstances, we have a strong case for at-fault divorce on grounds of adultery." "What does that mean for me? For the girls?" I asked, leaning forward. Olivia's pen scratched across the paper as she spoke. "It could work in your favor regarding asset division and potentially custody arrangements. Do you have evidence of the affair?" A grim smile tugged at my lips. "Photos and video. Caught them in the act." "Excellent," Olivia said, a predatory gleam in her eye. "That will be invaluable. Now, tell me about your financial situation. Joint accounts? Separate assets?" For the next hour, we dove into the nitty-gritty details of my soon-to-be dismantled marriage. With each question, each strategic consideration, I felt a weight lifting. This was action. This was control. As our meeting wound down, Olivia fixed me with a serious look. "Mr. Morgan, I want you to understand something. This process won't be easy. It will likely get messy, especially with children involved. Are you prepared for that?" I met her gaze steadily. "I'm prepared to do whatever it takes to protect myself and my daughters." She nodded approvingly. "Good. That's the attitude you'll need. Now, have you spoken to your children about the situation yet?" The question hit me like a punch to the gut. "No," I admitted. I'm not sure how." Olivia's expression softened slightly. "It won't be easy, but it's crucial that they hear it from you first. Be honest, but age-appropriate. Reassure them that both parents still love them, even if you can't be together anymore." I nodded, my throat tight. "I'll talk to them tonight." "Good," Olivia said, standing to signal the end of our meeting. "I'll start drawing up the paperwork. In the meantime, document everything. Any interactions with your wife, any expenses, anything that could be relevant." As I left the office, my mind was already racing with how to break the news to Harper and Lily. The hardest conversation of my life awaited me at home. The house was quiet when I returned, Camila's absence a palpable void. I found the girls in the living room, Harper scrolling through her phone while Lily worked on homework. "Hey, Dad," Harper said, glancing up. "You're home early. Everything okay?" I took a deep breath, steeling myself. "Girls, can you put that away for a minute? We need to talk." Something in my tone must have alerted them. Lily set down her pencil, worry creasing her young face. "What's wrong, Dad?" I sat down heavily in the armchair, facing my daughters. "How do you tell your children their world is about to be turned upside down?" "There's no easy way to say this," I began, my voice rough with emotion. "Your mother and we're getting a divorce." The silence that followed was deafening. Harper's phone slipped from her fingers, clattering to the floor. Lily's eyes widened, filling with tears. "What? Why?" Harper demanded, shock giving way to anger. "Is this because of your work? I thought things were getting better." I shook my head, hating the pain I was causing them. "It's not about work. Your mother, she was unfaithful. I caught her with someone else." Lily burst into tears, while Harper's face hardened into a mask of betrayal. "Who?" she asked, her voice cold. I hesitated, unsure how much to reveal. "It doesn't matter who. What matters is that your mother and I can't be together anymore. But I want you both to know that this doesn't change how much we love you." "Bullshit," Harper yelled, jumping to her feet. "If you loved us, you'd try to work it out." "Harper language," I admonished reflexively, then sighed. "I know this is hard to understand, but sometimes, even when people love each other, they do things that can't be forgiven. Lily's small voice broke through her sobs. Where's Mom? Is she coming back? My heart clenched. She's staying somewhere else for now. We're still figuring out the details, but I promise you'll see her soon. I hate this, Harper declared, angry tears finally spilling down her cheeks. I hate both of you. Before I could respond, she stormed out of the room, her bedroom door slamming moments later. Lily launched herself into my arms, crying in earnest now. I held her close, my own eyes burning with unshed tears. It's going to be okay, sweetheart, I murmured, hoping I wasn't lying. We'll get through this together. As I comforted Lily, my mind whirled with the challenges ahead. But beneath the pain and uncertainty, a spark of determination grew. I'd rebuild our lives, stronger than before. For my girls, and for myself. The road ahead would be tough, but I was ready to fight. Camila had made her choice. Now it was time to make mine. The next morning, I found Harper and Lily sitting at the kitchen table, both looking exhausted and withdrawn. I took a deep breath, steeling myself for another difficult conversation. Girls, can we talk? Harper glared at me over her cereal. What's left to say? I sat down, facing them both. A lot, actually. I know yesterday was a shock, but I want to be honest with you about what happens next. Lily looked up, her eyes red-rimmed. Are we moving? No, sweetheart. This is our home, I assured her. But there are going to be some changes. Harper scoffed. Yeah, like Mom not being here. I nodded, acknowledging the pain in her voice. That's true, and I know it hurts. But I've been thinking a lot about our future, about the kind of life I want us to have. What do you mean? Lily asked. I leaned forward, trying to inject some enthusiasm into my voice. I mean that maybe this is a chance for all of us to try new things, to live differently. Harper's eyes narrowed suspiciously. Like what? Well, I began. I've always wanted to travel more, see the world. Maybe we could take some trips together, explore places we've never been. Really? Lily perked up slightly. Like where? I smiled, encouraged by her interest. Anywhere you want. Paris, Tokyo, the Great Barrier Reef. The world's our oyster. That sounds expensive, Harper muttered. Money isn't the issue, I assured her. What matters is that we start living, really living, instead of just going through the motions. Lily's eyes widened. Could I learn to scuba dive? Absolutely, I nodded. And Harper, maybe you'd like to try that photography course you've been talking about? Harper's hard expression softened slightly. You remembered that? Of course I did, I said gently. I know I've been distracted with work, but that's going to change. I want us to do things together, to find new interests. What about your job? Lily asked. I took a deep breath. I'm thinking about scaling back, maybe even selling the company. It's time to focus on what really matters. Harper's jaw dropped. Seriously? But you've worked so hard. Some things are more important than work, I said firmly. Like family. Like being happy. A tentative smile crept onto Lily's face. Could we get a dog? I laughed, feeling a weight lift from my chest. We can definitely discuss it. What do you think, Harper? Any requests for our new adventure? Harper hesitated, then sighed. I guess. I've always wanted to learn to surf. Then we'll find the best waves out there, I promised. Look, I know this isn't easy. The divorce, the changes, it's a lot. But I want you both to know that no matter what, we're in this together. And I'm committed to making our lives better, more fulfilling. Lily got up and hugged me tightly. I love you, Dad. I held her close, feeling a lump in my throat. I love you too, sweetheart. Both of you. Harper didn't join the hug, but I saw a glimmer of hope in her eyes. So, when do we start this new life? I grinned. How about right now? Let's make a list of all the things we want to do, places we want to see. Sky's the limit. As we began brainstorming, the kitchen filled with a tentative excitement. It wasn't perfect, and there was still a long road ahead, but for the first time since discovering Camila's betrayal, I felt a spark of genuine hope for our future. The constant buzzing of my phone was driving me crazy. I glanced at the screen, seeing yet another missed call from Camila. With a frustrated sigh, I silenced it and tossed it onto the couch. Still calling? Olivia asked, her voice crisp over the speakerphone on my desk. Non-stop, I confirmed. Calls, texts, voicemails. She's relentless. Have you listened to any of the messages? I snorted. No. What's the point? Nothing she can say will change anything. Good, Olivia approved. Keep it that way. Any contact should go through me. Now, about those financial documents. A knock at my office door interrupted us. Dad? Harper's voice called. Can I talk to you? Just a second, I called back, then spoke to Olivia. I've got to go. I'll email you those files this afternoon. Make it quick, Olivia instructed. Time is money, and we need to move fast on this. I ended the call and opened the door. Harper stood there, looking uncomfortable. Everything okay? I asked. She held up her phone. Mom keeps calling me too. What should I do? I ushered her inside, closing the door. That's up to you, sweetheart. If you want to talk to her, you can. Harper frowned. But you're not talking to her. That's different, I explained. She's still your mother, and you have every right to a relationship with her if you want one. But she hurt you, Harper said, her voice small. She hurt all of us. I sighed, pulling her into a hug. I know, and it's okay to be angry. But don't cut her out just because I have to. Harper pulled back, studying my face. Have to? Or want to? Both, I admitted. Look, Harper, adult relationships are complicated. What happened between your mother and me, it's not something that can be fixed with a phone call. So that's it? You're never going to speak to her again? I ran a hand through my hair. For now, all communication goes through the lawyers. It's cleaner that way. Harper's brow furrowed. Cleaner? Less emotional, I clarified. We need to focus on the practical stuff right now. Finances, custody arrangements, all that fun legal stuff. It doesn't seem very fun, Harper muttered. I chuckled humorlessly. Trust me, it's not. But it's necessary. My phone buzzed again, Camila's name lighting up the screen. Harper glanced at it, then back at me. What if she has something important to say? Then she can say it to Olivia, I said firmly. I'm sorry, Harper, but I can't talk to her right now. It's too raw. Harper nodded slowly. Okay, I guess I understand. But Dad? Yeah. Don't let this make you bitter, okay? I don't want you to stop believing in love or anything. I blinked, surprised by her insight. I promise, kiddo. This is just a setback, not the end of the road. She gave me a small smile. Good. Because I kind of like the idea of you finding someone new someday. Someone who actually deserves you. I pulled her in for another hug, touched by her words. Thanks, Harper. But for now, let's focus on us, okay? On building our new life together. As Harper left, I turned back to my desk, eyeing the stack of financial documents waiting to be scanned and sent to Olivia. The road ahead was paved with tedious legal work, but it was a necessary evil. I'd do whatever it took to protect myself and my girls. With renewed determination, I picked up my phone and dialed Olivia's number. It's Sam. I'm ready to move forward with everything. What's our next step? I sat at my computer, fingers hovering over the keyboard. The cursor blinked accusingly in the search bar, waiting for me to make my move. With a deep breath, I typed, how to freeze joint bank accounts. As I scrolled through the results, a mix of guilt and righteousness warred within me. Was this too far? But then I remembered Camila's betrayal, the look on Bryce's face when I caught them, and my resolve hardened. My phone rang, Olivia's name flashing on the screen. I answered immediately. Sam, good news. Olivia's clipped tones came through. The judge has granted our request to freeze the joint accounts. It's done. A weight lifted from my shoulders. Thank you, Olivia. What's our next move? We keep pushing, she replied. I've drafted a proposal for asset division that heavily favors you, given the circumstances. We'll present it to Camila's lawyer tomorrow. I nodded, even though she couldn't see me. Good. And what about? A beep interrupted us, another call coming in. I glanced at the screen and froze. It was Jeremy, Camila's boss at the marketing firm. Olivia, I've got to go. Something's come up. Remember, Sam, no direct contact, she warned before hanging up. I switched to Jeremy's call, my heart racing. Jeremy, hi. What can I do for you? Sam, thank God. Jeremy's voice was strained. I've been trying to reach Camila all day. We've got a crisis with the Peterson account, and I can't get a hold of her. Do you know where she is? My mind raced. This was an opportunity, served up on a silver platter. I thought of Camila, probably panicking without access to our accounts, and made a split-second decision. I'm sorry, Jeremy, I said, infusing my voice with concern. Camila's going through some personal issues right now. I'm not sure she'll be able to handle the Peterson account. What? Jeremy sounded alarmed. But they're our biggest client. The presentation is tomorrow? I feigned surprise. Tomorrow? Oh no, I thought that was next week. Listen, Jeremy, given the circumstances, maybe I could step in? I've got some experience in this area. There was a pause, then Jeremy sighed in relief. Would you? Sam, that would be a lifesaver. Can you come to the office now? Absolutely, I agreed, already reaching for my jacket. I'll be there in 20 minutes. As I drove to Camila's office, guilt gnawed at me. Was I really going to sabotage her career? But then I remembered her tearful pleas, her insistence that her affair with Bryce was just a moment of weakness, and my resolve returned. I strode into the marketing firm with purpose, greeted by a frazzled Jeremy. Sam, thank God, he said, ushering me into a conference room. The files are all here, but they're a mess. We need to completely revamp the strategy by morning. I rolled up my sleeves, scanning the documents. Don't worry, Jeremy. I've got this. For the next several hours, I immersed myself in the Peterson account. But instead of salvaging Camila's work, I subtly undermined it. A changed number here, a shifted focus there. Nothing obvious, but enough to ensure the presentation would fail spectacularly. As dawn broke, I handed Jeremy a polished but poisoned proposal. Here you go. I think this will knock their socks off. Jeremy looked at me with gratitude. Sam, I don't know how to thank you. You're a lifesaver. I smiled, ignoring the twinge of guilt. Happy to help. Good luck with the presentation. As I drove home, exhausted but wired, my phone buzzed with a text from Camila. Sam, please. I can't access any of our accounts. I need money for groceries. Can we talk? I deleted the message without replying. Let her feel the consequences of her actions. This was just the beginning. Back home, I found Harper in the kitchen, eyeing me suspiciously. Where were you all night? I poured myself a much-needed coffee. Had to help out with a work emergency. Mom's work? Harper pressed. I met her gaze steadily. Yes, there was a problem with one of her accounts. Harper's eyes narrowed. And you helped? Why? Because it was the right thing to do, I lied smoothly. Despite everything, I don't want to see your mother's career implode. Harper studied me for a long moment, then nodded. Okay, I'm glad you're being the bigger person. As she left for school, I sank into a chair, the weight of my actions settling over me. I crossed a line, no doubt. But as I thought of Camila's betrayal, of the pain she'd caused our family, I couldn't bring myself to regret it. This was war, and I intended to win. The dim lights of O'Malley's bar did little to mask the tension in the air. I nursed my whiskey, trying to unwind after another long day of meetings and legal battles. The divorce was nearly finalized, but the emotional toll lingered. A familiar voice cut through the ambient chatter, sending a jolt of anger through me. I turned to see Bryce Turner at the bar, laughing with a group of friends as if he hadn't destroyed my family. Well, well, Bryce sneered, noticing me. If it isn't the cuckold himself. I gripped my glass tighter, willing myself to stay calm. Walk away, Bryce. You don't want this fight. He swaggered over, alcohol fueling his bravado. Oh, I think I do. How's Camila, by the way? Still begging you to take her back? The mention of Camila's name snapped something inside me. I stood, facing him squarely. You really want to do this here? Bryce grinned, his eyes glassy. What are you gonna do, Sam? Cry about it. Without warning, my fist connected with his jaw. Bryce stumbled back, shock quickly replaced by rage. He lunged at me, and suddenly we were grappling. Months of pent-up anger exploding in a flurry of punches. You ruined everything. I shouted, landing another blow. Bryce spat blood. His lips split. She was lonely. You were never there. We crashed into a table, sending glasses shattering to the floor. Patrons scattered, giving us a wide berth. That's enough. The bartender's voice boomed. Take it outside or I'm calling the cops. Breathing heavily, I stepped back. Bryce glared at me, his eye already swelling shut. This isn't over, he growled. I straightened my shirt, oddly calm despite the adrenaline coursing through me. Actually, it is. But thanks for the workout. As I walked out, leaving Bryce bruised and humiliated, a plan began to form. It was time to end this, once and for all. The next morning, I dialed a number I'd memorized but never used. It rang twice before a woman's voice answered. Hello? I took a deep breath. Amanda? This is Sam Morgan. We need to talk about your husband. There was a pause, then, Sam? What's this about? It's about Bryce. And Camila. There's something you need to see. An hour later, Amanda sat across from me in a quiet coffee shop, her face pale as she watched the video on my phone. The footage of Bryce and Camila in bed played silently, but its impact was deafening. Amanda's hand shook as she set down the phone. How long? She whispered. At least 6 months, I replied gently. I'm sorry, Amanda. I thought you deserved to know. She nodded, tears welling in her eyes. Thank you for telling me. I had suspicions, but I never wanted to believe. I reached out, hesitating before patting her hand awkwardly. I know the feeling. Listen, I know a great divorce lawyer if you need one. Amanda's eyes hardened, a spark of anger replacing the hurt. Oh, I'll need one. Bryce isn't going to know what hit him. As I watched Amanda leave, determination etched in every line of her body, I felt a mix of satisfaction and unease. The truth was out, justice served. But at what cost? My phone buzzed a text from Olivia. Final papers ready. Meeting tomorrow at 2. End of an era. I stared at the message, a weight lifting from my shoulders. It was really almost over. As I walked to my car, I caught a glimpse of my reflection in a store window. The man looking back at me was harder, perhaps, but also stronger, ready to face whatever came next. 6 years later, the gentle strains of Here Comes the Bride filled the air as I stood at the altar, watching my little girl walk down the aisle. Harper was radiant, her smile brighter than I'd seen in years. As she reached us, her soon-to-be husband beaming beside her, I felt a swell of pride and love so intense it nearly overwhelmed me. Who gives this woman to be married? The officiant asked. I cleared my throat, fighting back tears. Her mother and I do. As I took my seat in the front row, I caught sight of Camila across the aisle. She gave me a small, sad smile, which I returned with a nod. We'd come a long way from the bitterness and anger of 6 years ago. The ceremony passed in a blur of emotions and cherished moments. Before I knew it, Harper and David were running back down the aisle, showered in rose petals and laughter. At the reception, I found myself at the bar, taking a moment to breathe. A familiar voice behind me made me turn. Beautiful ceremony, wasn't it? Camila stood there, looking elegant in a deep blue dress. I nodded, raising my glass slightly. Harper outdid herself. You did a great job helping with the planning. She smiled, a hint of her old warmth shining through. Thanks, Sam. I'm just glad we could both be here for her. An awkward silence fell between us, years of unspoken words hanging in the air. Finally, Camila spoke again, her voice soft. You look good, Sam. Happy. I studied her face, noting the lines of regret etched around her eyes. I am happy. It took some time, but I got there. Camila nodded, her gaze drifting to the dance floor where Harper and David swayed to their first dance. I'm glad. You deserve it. After everything. I followed her gaze, watching our daughter's joy. We both made mistakes, Cam, but we're here now, and that's what matters. She turned back to me, her eyes shining with unshed tears. Do you ever wonder, Sam, what might have been if? Mom, Dad. Lily's voice cut through the moment. She bounded up, grinning. Come on, it's time for the family dance. As Lily dragged us onto the dance floor, I caught sight of Sophie, my girlfriend of 2 years, chatting with some of Harper's friends. She caught my eye and blew me a kiss, her smile warming me from across the room. The DJ's voice rang out. All right, let's get all the family members out here for a special dance. I found myself sandwiched between Lily and Harper, Camila on Harper's other side. As we swayed awkwardly to the music, I marveled at how far we'd come. The pain of betrayal had faded, replaced by a bittersweet acceptance of our new reality. Harper leaned in, whispering in my ear, "Thanks, Dad, for everything. I know this wasn't easy, but it means the world having you both here." I hugged her tightly, my heart full. "Anything for you, sweetheart. Always." As the song ended, I caught Camila's eye over Harper's shoulder. For a moment, I saw a flicker of the woman I'd fallen in love with all those years ago. But then Sophie appeared at my side, slipping her hand into mine, and the moment passed. "Having fun?" Sophie asked, her eyes twinkling. I pulled her close, planting a kiss on her cheek. "I am now. Care to dance?" As Sophie and I moved onto the dance floor, I saw Camila watching us from the sidelines. There was longing in her eyes, but also acceptance. We'd both moved on, forging new paths from the wreckage of our past. The night wore on, a blur of toasts and laughter and bittersweet memories. As the reception wound down, I found myself outside, gazing up at the stars. "Penny for your thoughts?" I turned to see Camila, a shawl wrapped around her shoulders against the night chill. "Just thinking about life," I replied. "How unpredictable it all is." She nodded, moving to stand beside me. If someone had told us on our wedding day that we'd end up here, we'd have laughed them out of the room, I finished, chuckling softly. Camila was quiet for a moment, then spoke softly. "I am sorry, Sam, for everything. I know it's too late, but I need you to know that." I turned to face her, seeing the weight of regret in her eyes. "I know, Cam, and I'm sorry too, for the part one played in driving us apart. But we can't change the past." "No," she agreed. "We can't. But maybe we can be friends? For the girl's sake, if nothing else." I considered her words, thinking of the long road we'd traveled. "I'd like that," I said finally. "Friends." As we shook hands, an odd formality between two people who had once shared everything, I felt the last traces of bitterness melt away. We'd never be what we once were, but maybe this new understanding was exactly what we needed. The sound of laughter from inside drew our attention. Harper and David were preparing to leave, surrounded by a cheering crowd of friends and family. "Shall we?" I offered my arm to Camila, a gesture of peace. She took it, smiling softly. "Let's go see our girl off." As we walked back into the reception, I felt a sense of closure wash over me. The past 6 years had been a journey of pain, growth, and ultimately redemption. Standing there, watching Harper embark on her own journey of love, I knew that whatever challenges lay ahead, we'd face them with the wisdom and strength hard-won from our experiences. The future, for the first time in years, looked bright indeed. The reception was winding down, the dance floor thinning as guests began to depart. I stood near the edge, Sophie's hand warm in mine, as we watched the remaining couple sway to a slow ballad. "Want to dance?" Sophie asked, her eyes sparkling with the reflection of twinkling lights. I smiled, pulling her close. "Always." As we moved to the music, I caught sight of Camila sitting alone at a table, her gaze fixed on us. The longing in her eyes was unmistakable, a poignant reminder of all that had passed between us. Sophie followed my gaze, her voice gentle. "It must be hard for her, seeing you with someone else." I sighed, torn between compassion and lingering resentment. "I suppose it is, but we've both made our choices." "Do you ever regret it?" Sophie asked, her tone careful. "Ending things with her?" I thought for a moment, my eyes drifting back to Camila. "No," I said finally. "It hurt, more than I can express. But it led me here, to this moment, to you." Sophie's smile was radiant as she leaned in for a kiss. As our lips met, I felt a surge of gratitude for this second chance at happiness. When we parted, I noticed Camila had left her seat. I scanned the room, finally spotting her on the terrace, alone in the moonlight. I should go check on her, I murmured. Sophie nodded, understanding in her eyes. Of course. I'll go see if Lily needs help with the gift table. As I approached Camila, the weight of our shared history settled over me like a familiar blanket. She turned at the sound of my footsteps, quickly wiping away a tear. Cam, you okay? She attempted a smile, but it didn't reach her eyes. Just being silly. Weddings always make me emotional. I leaned against the railing beside her, our shoulders almost touching. It's been quite a day. Camila nodded, her gaze distant. Seeing you with Sophie, you look happy, Sam. Truly happy. I am, I confirmed gently. She turned to me, her eyes shining with unshed tears. I'm glad. You deserve it, after everything I put you through. The admission hung between us, heavy with regret and unspoken apologies. Cam, I began, but she held up a hand. Please, let me say this. I know it's too late, and I know you've moved on, but I need you to know how sorry I am. For the affair, for hurting you and the girls. If I could go back? I shook my head, cutting her off. We can't go back, Cam. What's done is done. She nodded, a tear finally escaping to trail down her cheek. I know, but watching you tonight, seeing how happy you are with Sophie, I realized what I threw away, what I lost. I stood there, unsure how to respond. Part of me wanted to comfort her, to ease the pain etched across her face. But another part, the part still scarred by betrayal, held back. We both made mistakes, I said finally, but we've both grown from them too. You'll find happiness again, Cam. I believe that. She smiled sadly, shaking her head. Maybe, but it won't be the same. It won't be you. The moment stretched between us, filled with the ghosts of our shared past and the reality of our separate futures. Finally, Camila straightened, composing herself. I should go. It's getting late, and I don't want to intrude on your evening any longer. As she turned to leave, I caught her arm gently. Cam, wait. I know things will never be the same between us, but I hope we can be friends, for the girls' sake and for our own. She looked at me, surprise and hope warring in her eyes. I'd like that, Sam. I'd like that very much. We shared a brief, awkward hug, the first physical contact we'd had in years that wasn't tinged with anger or resentment. As Camila walked away, disappearing into the dwindling crowd of the reception, I felt a chapter of my life truly close. The bitterness that had fueled me for so long had finally burned away, leaving room for something new. Something, perhaps, even better. I turned back to the party, spotting Sophie chatting with Lily by the gift table. As our eyes met across the room, her smile warming me even from a distance, I knew I was exactly where I was meant to be. The future stretched out before me, full of promise and possibility. This is where our story comes to an end. Share your thoughts in the comments section. Thanks for your precious time. If you enjoyed this story, then please make sure you subscribe to this channel. That would help me a lot. Click on the video you see on the screen, and I will see you there.